You know, if you had 10,000 climbers before and 1% of them were elite, now you have 10 million climbers, and that 1% that's elite, that's just a much bigger pool of people.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Struggle Climbing Show. It's me, Ryan, fresh off the airplane from the Arc'teryx Academy in beautiful Squamish, British Columbia, Canada. Holy smokes, I'm so jet-lagged and tired, you guys. But this is what we do when we host podcasts. We turn them around quickly so they are hot and they are fresh. Even if your beleaguered podcast host is neither of those two things. This one's really cool. You know, we sat down on the main stage. I say we, me and Chris Kalous, the legendary host of the Enormocast. We sat down on the main stage there in the pavilion, and we did a couple live podcasts while we were there for the Academy. We did a ton of stuff while we were there. I'll give you a little recap here before we dive into this episode. But this episode here is a live conversation that we had on the main stage on Saturday night with absolute crushers, Jonathan Siegrist, Alannah Yip, Tyler Thompson, and Mike Foley, all of the Arc'teryx team. Mike Foley is a climber who climbs really, really hard. I mean, 9A plus. I think he's done a 515 route, bunch of really hard 514 routes, and is also one of the lead designers over at Arc'teryx. And so as a climber as well as a gear designer, we had a really fascinating conversation with him, predominantly focused on their new harness, the Lithos SL harness, which I've been testing, field testing as just a regular weekend warrior for the past few months now. And it's a banger. And so we kind of explored this conversation with him and Alannah, Jonathan, and Tyler through this lens of gear design, performance gear design, as well as performance climbing. And we focused a lot on sport climbing. And so Mike brought some fantastic perspective from both sides there, as well as J-Star, because Jonathan, do you hear Humphrey? What are you barking at, bud? What do you want? Quiet, I'm recording a podcast. That's Humphrey, my puppy. You know, I've been gone for like 7 days, so now he won't leave my side. Stop it. Stop. I'm trying to record. Where was I? Jonathan. Yes, Jonathan. He's been on the Arc'teryx team for a really long time. Quiet, Humphrey. I cannot do this with you talking like that. He's chewing my fingers. I don't even have any skin left on my hands from the Squamish granite, and he's trying to chew it up. You gotta go. Go. Come on. You too. Go. I've kicked the dogs out of the podcast booth, you guys. Poor Ringo just got wrapped up in that whole thing. He wasn't doing anything. He was just sleeping. And now he's like, what? Now I gotta go? They're both gone. Where was I? I could edit all this out, but I'm not going to. I'm too jet-lagged. You just got a little taste of life in the podcast/utility closet. Okay. I'm rambling. J-Star. Oh yeah, he was really influential on the design of the harness and just like, you know, field testing a ton of gear, and had some really funny stories about, you know, what he does to try to break gear out in the field. Alannah Yip, an absolute crusher. She has been climbing since she was like 9 or 10 years old, and did the comp circuit, and now is just doing really cool and interesting things outdoors. And Tyler Thompson, who was a recent guest on this podcast. You all know Tyler, the young phenom who's just clicking off 515 routes like they're warm-ups. I mean, he just did Kindercakes in rifle, and it was like 90 degrees outside. And he plays it down. He's like, oh, you know, the holds are big. It didn't really matter that much that it was hot, but come on, you guys. To do a 515 in that kind of heat is absolute madness. So anyway, a panel of crushers. And what else? I'll give you a little recap of my climbing out there. Now let's do it on the back end. You probably care more about just diving into this episode. But on the back end, I'll tell you a bit about my climbing out in Squamish. But right now, let's jump right in, live from the Arc'teryx Academy. Welcome, y'all, to the Arc'teryx Climb Academy. I'm Ryan Devlin, host of the Struggle Climbing Show, and this is Chris Kalous, host of the Enormocast. Give it up for Chris Kalous, y'all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
How many years has the Enormocast been going, Chris?
2011, so do the math. I guess 15 years. It'll be 15 in December.
15 years of climbing podcasting being brought to the main stage today.
Back when the podcast was, nobody knew what it was. You had to download it onto your iPod, hence the name. Yeah. I didn't even have internet when I started it where I lived. I'd have to drive to the library to post my shows. I was that guy with the screen light on his face in his car doing something dubious.
Stealing Wi-Fi?
Yeah, stealing Wi-Fi to post my thing, not something else.
There's plenty of people in the audience right now and listening to this who are doing the van life or the dirtbag thing who are stealing Wi-Fi from all over the place. So it's still happening.
Did anyone remember when you could drive around and get it from people's houses because nobody had it secured? Yeah, that was the early van life-y thing to do. You would literally just drive down the street because nobody had done the password thing. And just like, oh, here's one, and you'd pull over.
Wait for a signal.
There we go.
Get
right
a strong signal.
She knows. But then, and that whole security thing is like just, they didn't want people like stealing internet so they could sell it to everybody. Because everybody would steal it from that house all around them,
right,
too.
so you knew when there was like 18 cars parked outside of your house, you're like, oh, I'm the one.
No, it's no joke.
This is actually a good jumping off point for this conversation because we're going to be talking about the evolution in action of performance climbing and performance gear. We've got some incredible athletes that are going to join us on the main stage here for this conversation. But first, we kind of have our own Arc'teryx dinosaur here with Chris Kalous, who was not only early in podcasting before the internet even existed, but also early in climbing. And I want to ask you some questions, Chris, because we were talking about this earlier about harness technology, because I was out climbing in my Lithos SL harness today, which is fantastic. And I was asking you about your first harness, which I think was called a Swami belt. This was your pre-harness.
No. We're here in Squamish. I don't see anybody out there but there's definitely guys here in Squamish that have the Swami in their past. But 1989 was not Swami land yet. It was a long time ago. I feel like, the little meme where there's the guys, the sort of evolution of the human that goes bigger and bigger to someone standing up and it's like a skier or whatever. It's like a joke. Well, I'm like only a third of the way through that. I'm like the really stumped over guy in the middle or so.
But so you had leg loops though on your first harness.
Yeah, we had leg loops.
Okay, great. Do you recall what your first harness ever was?
It was a harness from REI that still exists pretty much. The one with the little rabbit ear things that stick up and you tie through it. It's pretty much like you'd get it if you were at like a rental program. Because I didn't have any money and that was fine. And then I got a Chenard bod. And I was hoping there'd be more olds here, but I don't see a lot of them. Anybody wear a Chenard bod?
There are people who are listening right now who are like, I got the bod still.
So it had leg loops sort of, but this thing would hang down and you'd pull it through your legs. And then
like a diaper?
Yeah, kind of. And it was like right up in there. And I don't know if you needed that visual, but
fortunately,
I actually did my first two all cap roots in that. And like you would be numb in that area for weeks afterwards.
Just because you're like hang dogging.
Yeah, you're just hanging and eight climbing and stuff like that. Yeah, I get in some faces. But then I got this thing called the Hone Master, which was made by J-Rat, which is a company out of Boulder, Colorado, early sort of soft goods company. They made these really popular fleece jackets too that some people still sport. But the Hone Master actually was so cool that I felt like I wasn't worthy. And I kind of like slunk into the store and bought it because it was like a proper sport climbing harness, and sport climbing literally had just been invented. So, like, no joke. At least, especially in Colorado, they're still fist fighting over that kind of thing. So I felt like I wasn't worthy of the Hone Master. And anyway, those were like kind of the first two I remember.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna have to be brought way more current now with me because I didn't start climbing until 2009, somewhere in there. But I think like the technology was pretty good by the time I started climbing. Like everything was like really comfortable and for the most part like performed well. But it's just really impressive to see how you can take something that seemingly is like working great and just kind of make it better and better and better. And I think there's been a parallel path with climbing performance, and we've just seen the ceilings get smashed over and over and over again on whether it's V grades or sport grades or really hard bold trad, some of it just like on the forefront right out here in Squamish. And that's what this conversation's about here. We're going to talk about this evolution in technology, but also the evolution in hard climbing. And we've got some incredible guests to talk
let's
about
see.
it.
I want to mention one more thing on the evolution part. Is that, and I mentioned this recently on another interview or thing that I did, but you were supposed to suffer. Like that was, you like just climbing in general, you were to leave the house and like that was almost the goal. And so like this idea of making things work better and more comfortable, and it just kind of didn't compute, I think, for a lot of people. And I mean, I was talking about the weather, like, this is all about how old I am, but you didn't know what the weather was. You didn't know. The place to look for the weather was in the newspaper on the back page. And if you were out somewhere, you didn't have you did not know what the weather forecast was. And you went anyway. You just went anyway.
Was it better when it was more suffering? Like, was the goal
no,
suffering, or did you actually want to have a good time?
It was like type 2 fun. There was no type 1 fun.
It was all just type 2 fun.
Honestly, I'm trying to make eye contact with someone who could like, yes, that's so true, Chris. But anyway, we're all soft now.
Well, I mean,
don't still climb in the bod though.
But
be noted.
But what now like all this technology, whether it's like better forecasting or just better gear, allows is for the ceiling for performance to be raised.
Exactly.
And not just for professional athletes, but also for like everyday climbers like us. So if we have great gear, we can usually push ourselves and kind of actualize our genetic potential, if you will, our physical and mental potential, if the gear is not getting in the way, or in fact, if the gear is assisting us. And so we've got some people to talk about that here. We got Arc'teryx designer Mike Foley right here, and we got professional climber and absolute rock star Alannah Yip. Let's give it up for our guests right now. And Alannah, let's start with you for a second here. Do you recall the first harness you ever had? We're talking about harnesses predominantly here, but also you could just talk about a favorite early piece of gear.
My first harness was an Arc'teryx Vapor.
Oh, nice.
You were right in there.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up climbing in North Van,
Right.
not too far from the headquarters. So our youth climbing team where I started was sponsored by Arc'teryx.
Nice.
So I had a Arc'teryx harness when I was 9.
And do you recall just when you were young, were you climbing out in Squamish at that time?
I don't think I climbed in Squamish till I was 10 or 11.
Yesterday we had this kind of this conversation that focused a lot about like the evolution of Squamish climbing, and we were asking about like a most favorite or notable or maybe like terrifying, whatever kind of stands out in your mind, experience in Squamish. And I guess you were a kid at the time, but what comes to mind, Alannah?
Well, I remember the very first day I went outdoor climbing at Cheakamus at Forgotten Wall, but maybe the most memorable day was, I think I was 11 and I went up here, came up here with the intention of doing my first outdoor lead climb, and we went to Rogues Gallery, and I was going to get on Yellowbeard, and I think I made it to the second draw, and then the first one, the bolt fell out of the wall. No. And I was like, no, I don't want to come down. No. Don't think this is for me.
On your first ever lead, a bolt fell out?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd probably take up golf or something. That's nuts.
That was part of the early Crag to Gym program.
Yeah.
Don't climb outside. It's super scary. The bolts never fall out in the gym.
That is wild. So what happened? Did you come off the route and just go somewhere else?
I think I lowered and I
Yeah.
saved completing my first outdoor lead climb for another day.
Amazing. Okay, good. Well, we'll pull more into that. Chris, do you want to introduce our next esteemed guest here?
Mike Foley, someone who also crushes here in Squamish and is a big part or the lead designer on the Lithos SL. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, same question. Arrival here and an early moment that you remember from your Squamish days, which was probably quite recently.
I mean, I actually
In my
grew up
life,
in the
anyway.
Boston area, so I
Okay.
grew up climbing on Rumney, Conway. My first harness back then, I believe, was a Mammut harness with still double back buckles, legs, and Swami for sure. So I remember those days where you had to check the double back.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Luckily.
My first trip to Squamish was in 2016, and I remember that summer I'd actually qualified for the Youth World Championships, and I was like, I actually have a trip planned to Squamish instead. So instead of going to like Youth Worlds, I went to Squamish and went trad climbing on my first like trad climbing trip ever.
Nice.
One really memorable moment was I tried freeway. I was like, well, I'm a pretty good sport climber, like I can handle this, and I was just so scared. and so cold. I remember wearing like shorts and a t-shirt, like starting 6 a.m. and being like, oh my God, 5'11" on gear is so heinous.
Yeah.
And just being pumped out. I think we ended up bailing maybe halfway through, I think before that roof pitch. But yeah, I just remember being so scared and so cold. And then years later, came back and did it, and I had a great time. But that first experience for sure, I remember being quite terrified.
That's that suffering that Chris, you're talking about there.
Well done, Mike. Well done.
All you have to do is come out unprepared.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Recipe for a good time, for sure.
I guess my point about the weather was you were always unprepared.
Right, yeah, you never knew it was coming. Well, let's talk about kind of the evolution of gear and landing on the Lithos SL here. And Mike, it's a heck of a harness that you helped to put together. Alannah, I'm curious from your perspective as an athlete. I mean, Arc'teryx harness was your first harness, so like you've seen an evolution of the gear just since you were 10 years old. What kind of input do you have on the process as being part of the athlete team here with Arc'teryx? And like, what comes to mind when you're out climbing? Like, are you like jotting down little notes where you're like, that feels weird? Like, how does it work? How does the collaboration process work?
I think we're really lucky as athletes at Arc'teryx that we have a really strong connection, collaborative kind of relationship with the designers. By design, we'll do a number of meetings a year where all of the climb athletes will meet with all of the climb designers. And at all of the academies, we had a whole day where the intent was for the athletes to do your sport with the designers of that for that gear, that clothing, and just chat, maybe look at new protos. I actually climb quite a lot with Mike and his partner outside, just normal life. So I feel like if there's anything that I'm noticing more recently with the harnesses, we just chat about it.
So like giving input whether Mike wants it or not, basically.
Basically, yeah.
And so then, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about how the project for the Lithos kicked off, or just give us like some provenance of that, and we can dive into some nitty gritty.
Yeah, so Arc'teryx has obviously a huge history in harnesses, with the first harnesses in the late 1980s, which is kind of crazy to think about that. And like we've been producing harnesses ever since then. And with that, there's sort of always this interest in pushing what we can improve, like even micro details, like what can we make better every single year. And there's been quite a big gap from, I think, around 2007 from around where the design was. And kind of, yeah, just looking for where we can make some gains in technology and performance. And
Is it all about weight, or is it strength? Is it comfort? Like, what's the primary driver when you're sitting down at the drawing board?
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of harness. So this one really specifically is sport climbing. And that's for sure for me, like my favorite category of climbing. And what I was noticing with a lot of other harnesses is that they often kind of lean in one direction or another. They're either so light that they're horrible to climb in, or they're comfortable enough that they're bulky and hard to move in. And for me, like whatever weight it is kind of negligible. You know, it's like, just don't climb with crap on your harness, and then that feels a lot lighter.
Right.
Cut your hair. Yeah. But we talk a lot about like what's not lightweight, but like what's the right weight to kind of meet all those durability standards, while at the same time kind of having that balance of mobility and strength, obviously, which is, you have to hit obviously certain metrics for strength. But for this one in particular, we were looking at like, how can you make a harness that moves with your body much better? And then all the other things sort of followed suit after that. Like all the details are built around how does the harness move on your body to kind of improve mobility and make sure it really disappears while you're moving.
I mean, most companies that make climbing gear, their engineers are climbers. It has to work that way to a certain extent, or you know, they want those jobs, the climbers that are engineers. But it's interesting that this is this sport climbing focused harness, and you are an incredible sport climber. I mean, you are, you know, he's 5'15", right? 5'15" sport climber.
I've done
at least one time.
I did it when I was really young, but I didn't take the 9A plus points. So I've just done one technically.
Awesome. I mean, so it's like interesting to have someone who is so intimately working on this product that is, you know, and you are on the cutting edge of what it's for. And I think that's, I mean, like I said, climbers are in all those engineering positions, but you know, oftentimes maybe it's a trad climber who's trying to like figure out a sport climbing harness or things like that. And I just kind of wanted to know how you ended up in that position. We talked about you know, being a youth competitor, but then coming out here from Boston, you know, now you're sitting here as this person who's, you know, intimately designing gear. Just a brief moment of how that happened.
Yeah, so growing up in the Boston area, I was on a youth climbing team. But back then, I think before waivers and liability were such a big thing, outdoor climbing was actually a really huge component of my like outdoor upbringing, and like all the comps we had in off season. I think nowadays with youth climbing, there's like no off season, but back then we used to have an off season. So we'd spend, even in Boston, we would climb twice a week outside in the summer. So like outdoor climbing was always a really important component of climbing in general. It wasn't all about competition. I think growing up, like I grew up in a very artsy family. Like my dad was a graphic designer, my mom was a bookbinder. And then when I had a chance to go to university, I was like, I'm gonna go into science, I'm gonna do something different. So I think I've always liked the science, engineering, like that testing, statistics, like looking at numbers and like how those things actually can measure performance and measure differences. And then after graduating, I was like, shit, I actually don't want to do anything in the science world. What have I done? I probably should have did a design degree. So I actually went back to school for design locally in Vancouver. And I think like I was just looking for that blend of where can I really employ my interest and like obsession with climbing and also have that sort of scientific approach. And I think particularly at Arc'teryx, that's like the perfect blend of how we approach problems and how we approach product. It's like so function driven that the aesthetics are a result of the function. And I think I really like that approach to design. And I think that's something that Arc'teryx really leans into. So yeah, it was kind of like this perfect blend of my background in climbing, a mix of science and a mix of art and engineering. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting combination that is pretty unique to the outdoor industry and Arc'teryx in particular.
I think we should take a second to give a couple harnesses away. Do you think anybody in the crowd, does anybody need a harness? Like, let's do a need-based one right now. There's a lot of hands. There's a lot of needy climbers out there. Who's got a real sob story about their harness?
Oh, this gal in the green here.
What do you think?
I broke my hip. Well, long story long. I had to take part of my hip and put it in my shoulder, so my harness doesn't fit anymore. So I can't wear it. My old harness, not Arc'teryx, doesn't actually fit anymore.
Oh,
so,
this is perfect because the Lithos SL has 12 sizes, I believe. It's like super customizable with the leg loops and the lengths and all that. Mike can speak to that a little bit better. What do you all think? Do you think she should get a free harness? I think so. Let's give it up and get.
I mean, hip in your shoulder wins. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think the hip bone goes in the shoulder bone in the song. Hip bone belongs in the. I don't know. No. I'm not a doctor. Go on over there and get yourself a free harness. In a second, we're going to bring up Crusher Tyler Thompson, and we'll see if Jonathan Siegrist is back from his clinic yet. But Alannah, I wanted to take a second, if we could, to ask you about just the evolution of sport climbing itself and hard sport climbing. And just recently in the news here, we're seeing people are continuing to find ways to perform at the absolute hardest levels. So just from your perspective, as an athlete who's been at it for decades now and probably seen what you thought would be like the quote-unquote hardest grades just continue to tick up, what do you think the next 5 years will look like, or the next 10 years? Are there limits in hard sport climbing?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm at the cutting edge of hard sport climbing, but I think that we will see sport climbing grades continue to increase for a while. I think there's a level of physicality that's been reached in boulders that hasn't always been, like, can be probably translated more and more into longer routes. But I think also with the growing popularity of the sport, we're going to see difficulty pushed in all disciplines.
Yeah, it's interesting because you got a background in like competitive climbing and the kind of the crossover of the worlds there, and you don't typically see, or I haven't seen a lot of like kind of quote unquote comp style moves on sport routes until kind of recently. And now it looks like people are developing or finding outdoor lines that require what would have maybe formerly be considered like comp style movement or knowledge or skill libraries. And is that an area that you think will be explored more going forward?
Yeah, I think that we'll see more dynamicism.
Dynamicism,
yep.
Yeah.
In outdoor climbing. But I also think, in my opinion, in the last 5 to 10 years, the style of indoor competitions has like veered so far away from sport climbing. I think we're going to continue to see them grow into two almost completely different sports.
Yeah, and Mike mentioned how the comp climber is kind of starting to waste their time training outside, or they have that attitude.
Yeah, I think for a long time you were able to do both well, and I think you're going to see that less and less. That's my prediction for the future.
Well, it's interesting too to talk to you as a woman climber, because one of the things I was going to mention, I forgot to kind of get it in there, is that the back in the day stuff is that women climbed in men's climbing gear because there was only men's climbing gear, and all the way to the clothing. I talked to Sarah Hunikin, who will be on the stage tonight for a little thing, and she talked about, I just had to buy big old men's jackets and they didn't fit right and all that sort of thing. And I mean, Arc'teryx has been on the forefront of that. I mean, a lot of companies are really focusing on we've been sort of doing the ladies dirty with forcing them into different types of setups or different types of platforms that are really for men. And this harness thing too is the multiple sizes mean that the waist and the leg loops can change in variation. Do you have influence on that in terms of Arc'teryx's designs?
I mean, it's something that I think a lot of us have been asking for a long time, is non-gendered harnesses. It's not that there's 12 sizes for men and 12 sizes for women. There's just 12 sizes for different body shapes. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important to me. It's not that I think that they should be gendered. In general, I think clothing shouldn't be gendered. They should just be different shapes.
When you fit a harness, typically it's or up until this point, whenever I got a harness, it would be small, medium, large, and you have these variables now, right? You'll be able to speak to it better than me. But essentially, how can one customize their harness with a Lithos SL that's different than what we're accustomed to in the past?
Yeah, so obviously traditionally a lot of brands do extra small, let's say, through extra large. Sometimes it's gendered. That's just a pretty unique thing between some brands. But yeah, we were kind of finding that based on customer reviews, talking to athletes, seeing people choosing harnesses, they'd often pick a harness based on the gender and not what actually fits them best. And fit is a really complicated topic, obviously. And there is a lot of personal preference, just like wearing anything, with how a harness feels and fits on your body. Some of that has to do with body shape, and all of it just has to do with how you prefer to hang in a harness. So we did a lot of testing, A/B testing with a lot of different shapes and sizes of people just to see where they fit. And it was often the case where women should have been wearing what would be traditionally called a men's harness, and a lot of men would have been much more comfortable in what would have been traditionally a women's harness. So a couple of ways to look at how those fits have evolved over the years is looking at both your leg size and your waist, and then sort of that connection webbing, the rise between the two. So if you have a deeper pelvic depth, some people prefer the harness to sit higher, so that'd be a longer rise harness. And that just also makes you hang in a more upright position. And that could just be personal preference totally. So I think we're trying to give the option to choose and make sure people are looking in the size chart and choosing a harness that fits them and fits their style and how they like to move in a harness and feel in a harness, versus just being oh, I wear size medium pants, I should wear a size medium harness, because obviously you don't wear a harness like you wear a pair of pants. So I think trying to dissociate the clothing fit from technical equipment fit. They're very different things. You don't necessarily choose a bike based on, you look at the numbers and you look at the size chart and you have your preferences for how things feel, and then you try them, and then you choose the one that works best for your style.
And it's it's not style, it's PPE. It's safety equipment. You shouldn't be fitting based on the way you fit a pair of pants, which might be really tight, might be really oversized.
Right.
You need to fit it the way that it fits your body.
Yeah, and I will say, having climbed in it today, but also I've been climbing in the harness for months now, it really does disappear. When you get the fit right, which I did by doing all the measurements and all that ahead of time, I'm just not even aware that it's there, which is it was kind of a odd feeling at first, to be perfectly honest, but then I've done enough just dogging on routes and hanging on bolts to also know that it's quite comfortable. So although it's disappears, it still feels very good to be projecting on a route. So my hat's off to you on that. I think we're going to bring out Tyler Thompson and Jonathan Siegrist now to keep the conversation going. Yeah. Chris, what do you think? Let's give it up for Mike and Alannah for joining the first half of the podcast here.
Thanks, Steve.
Whoever cheers awesome. The loudest gets a harness. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of, these people are back here jumping up and down. Yes, you in the blue. Yes, come on down here and get your harness. She was doing cartwheels. Come on down here. Yep, in the blue. You want to introduce our new guests here?
What's that?
I feel like I'm doing too much talking.
No, you're good. You just did introduce
Chris
them.
and I had a drink a couple hours ago to strategize for this. And in the nicest way, he let me know that I talked too much yesterday in yesterday's podcast.
That's not what I said.
Yeah, no, it's not what you said, but
He's just so
I was
sharp
reading
and
between the
quick.
lines.
So I actually have a question for you guys.
Okay, good.
No.
Is
do
this
that.
is this a struggle or an Enormocast?
It's
What
an
are we
normal
doing?
struggle.
Oh, okay.
No, it's the struggle cast.
No, it's a normal struggle.
Is it a collab?
Well, who thinks it should be the struggle cast? You get a harness and okay.
Oh, wait.
I'm just kidding.
Wait, what was your name? Your name's better.
A normal struggle.
Yeah, okay, I like that
Oh,
one
you like
more.
that one?
Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go with a normal struggle.
That's what I realized after I named it that I can just put a normal on any other word and it works.
Yeah.
So it's actually a weirdly good marketing thing that I didn't plan, but yeah, a normal coffee, a normal dump, whatever it is.
normal dump.
That follows the normal coffee.
So, J-Star, are you just coming from a clinic?
Yes, fresh.
How'd it go?
Great.
Yeah?
It was awesome. Shout out my clinic. Where are you guys
we got
at?
some of J-Star's clinic in the
Yes.
house.
No, it was awesome. It was a Learn to Lead clinic. And it's one of my favorite clinics to teach because I was telling this to them earlier, but it's really cool to provide a space for people to have a really, truly new, fresh, and unique experience like that. Like you've never led, like several people in my clinic had never led climb before today, and they did like 2 or 3 different new routes leading.
Sick.
It's pretty cool. It's
Give
pretty,
it up for the first
Yeah,
leads
yeah, exactly.
ever. Do y'all remember your
awesome.
first lead and how terrifying it was? Alannah was saying on her first ever lead, a bolt pulled out.
Who?
Alannah.
Alannah, yeah,
Alannah,
first ever
when she was
outdoor
That
lead.
is very unusual.
Up here in Squamish. It is very, that's good. That's good for you to say, by the way. Like, that does not happen. This is when she was 10 years old. Like, I think the bolts it was a different ethic back then with the bolting and all that. But
It
yeah,
didn't pull out on, like, she wasn't hanging on or anything. That'd be a pretty crappy bolt if a 10-year-old Alannah Yip pulled it out, you know?
So I want to ask you guys the same question that we asked Mike and Alannah when they came up here, which is just if you have just a favorite memory or just something that stands out with regard to a climbing experience in Squamish, and that could be your first time here or just something that really made an impression on you. J-Star, we can start with you, then we'll go over to Tyler.
I have a lot of great memories from Squamish. I was thinking.
I asked for one.
Let me do my thing. So, I was trying to think earlier today. I think this is my 15th academy here.
Let's go.
Because because before it was the Arc'teryx Academy, it was the Squamish Mountain Fest. I don't even remember what year that was. It was a long time ago. But it's grown enormously even. And anyways, I've had a lot of great experiences here, but I still feel like I haven't climbed here enough because I'm always here for the event and then out and in and out and whatever. I need to come and stay for like a few months. But the one that comes to mind when you mention that, the first one that comes to mind, and I'm sure a lot of folks have climbed the Grand Wall, but the first time I ever came here was a very long time ago, and the gentleman who had a lot to do with me being on Arc'teryx, I started in 2008 with Arc'teryx, and at the time, Scott Milton, who's a Canadian climbing legend, he had a lot to do with getting me on the team, and he was a mentor for me for many of my years in the beginning of being on the team as an athlete. But he sandbagged the shit out of me and my girlfriend at the time on the Grand Wall. I had like no idea what I was getting into, right? And I remember we were staying at his house, and I was like, so do I need I didn't even look at a guidebook, which is, I know, an inappropriate thing to do, but I was just kind of like, oh, this guy knows everything, I'm just gonna ask him. And I remember distinctly asking him, do I need any big gear at all? And he was like, no, you're good. He knew, right, that I was gonna get totally hosed on the, what is it, the sword?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's wide.
Yeah, that's wide.
And so I think the biggest thing I brought was like a 1. and if you've done the Grand Wall, this is like you're climbing for like 60 feet without any gear basically at this point. It's easy, but that was that, and then of course I think the first time you traverse the belly up ledge is always like pretty. It leaves an impression on you. But I will always remember that. I remember giving Scott so much shit about that, like from the beginning. But
Can I give you some advice?
yes, please.
Get your Squamish beta from Paul McSorley.
Yes.
Yes,
Now that
always.
Paul is in my life, I would
Yeah.
never do anything without asking
Paul
him.
talked about that last
Yeah,
night. in
he's
fact.
commenting. He said probably 50 times,
Yeah.
and he'll never do you wrong on beta.
That's
he
true.
cares about you.
Yeah, no, he wants me to be. I think Scott wanted me to have
your
a
comeuppance.
life-altering, scary experience. He knew that I probably wouldn't be like injured, but
Probably.
emotionally, I'd be changed forever, and I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I think that's my first time climbing at Smith Rock. I had the pleasure to go out with Alan Watts. And the first route up, he was like, "You just need 6 draws for this," and it was like a 9-draw route,
Yeah.
and so like I had to run it out at the end. He's like, "That's what it used to be like."
Oh, I love
it was
it.
an easy route. It was an easy route. Like I wasn't in danger, but
He did it he wanted to see the fear in your eyes. He wanted to be there.
Oh, he
and-
saw it. I
yeah.
was like terrified.
Hey Tyler, do you want to go get a drink while these guys talk?
Yeah.
No. Stay. Chris, you can go. Tyler, let's hear from you. When
Well-
did you first come to Squamish?
Well, last summer was my first academy, so that was my first time climbing in Squamish, but I was lucky enough to spend a month climbing here. And generally, like, I'm a sport climber, but one day Ethan Salvo and I wanted to go do some multi-pitch climbing, and, you know, he's a pretty proficient sport and trad climber
Yeah,
and
Ethan's a
V16
good guy.
boulder,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
we wanted to pick something that would be like a good challenge, but like, you know, reasonable to do in a few hours. We picked this like pretty classic 11A on the left side of the Chief called Deep Impact, and it starts with a 65 meter 10C pitch put up in 1985 that Ethan and I basically spent an hour just going to the absolute death on this, and we summited, and we both just had a moment, and we're like, should we bail right now? We had 5 pitches above us, and we just sat there, and we're like, is this it for us? And luckily we had some snacks, and the rest of the route was a bit newer, and we managed to summit, and then proceeded to get torrentially rained on, rappelling down. So it was a proper epic.
Chris loves that.
I know.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is
the
theme of
summer.
this.
Epics still exist.
Yeah, they have to.
Dude, I don't know what it is about that. Like, I mean, Chris and I went out yesterday on a multi-pitch, and it was like 5'9" was the thing, and I was fighting to
You
the
had a hard
death
time.
on it. I had such a hard time on it. I got my legs stuck. It was
Your
a whole.
foot
I
was
got, yeah, my
seriously
foot stuck. I was like, this is gonna be. You have to leave me here.
I mean, probably a minute and a half trying to get your foot
I think.
out.
It felt
Which
like an hour.
Feels like an eternity
Yeah.
when your foot's stuck.
I literally. And by the way, this is the help that Chris was giving me. He's like, just move, just move. And I'm
I
like,
was not.
I can't. Yeah, you're
I
like,
was
"Go,
wisely silent during your foot epic.
Oh, God. So good. Would love to talk now kind of more currently about like super hard sport climbing, cutting edge. J-Star, before you sat down here, Mike Foley was in that seat and we were talking about the Lithos SL harness, which I think you had quite a bit of influence on. And can you just tell me about that process? Like what's the collaborative process like being on the Arc'teryx team and specifically with the harness?
I've known Mike Foley independent from Arc'teryx for a really long time. First time we climbed together was in Rumney back when he lived in Boston. And so I've always known and respected him as a climber, and then it was so cool to see him come on as a designer and to have all the wealth of experience that he does as a climber and then put that into any design projects that he works on. The harness in particular was really fun because I would just get these random, you know, every now and then I'd get a text like kind of like something's in the mail, you know, and then some harness, some iteration would pop in and I would, you know, test my life to this random thing that came in like a bubble wrap box, you know, and then
There's
you
not
know,
much to it. Like
there's not much
Yeah.
to it. No, and there were a couple times where there was this giant tag on the harness that was like, this is not safe to use as a, and Mike would be like, no, you can rip
That's
that
just
off.
liability
I
stuff,
tested
dude.
it. It's good. It's good. But no, it was really fun. Like we went through a bunch of iterations together and I was giving him feedback. And I mean, I think my role, like, I mean, he did, you know, all the heavy lifting, but the only role I had was just to, I mean, try and put 100 days or 200 days or whatever it was into these random harnesses and wherever I was going, and if it was living in Europe or back here or in the States or whatever. So I think really, you know, speaking of Paul McSorley, like he's also product tester and just our whole thing is just to beat the crap out of it and find ways to break it. I actually remember I took a really bizarre, when I first got like the first Lithos in particular harness, I was in Seiyus at the time. I took this gigantic whipper and it I went upside down and it like ripped not anything structural, but the little like piece of fabric that holds the leg loop inside of the belay loop, basically the underside of it. The fall was so weird that somehow blew up.
Right.
And I remember being like, dude, the thing blew up, And then he's like, oh, I brought it into the next time I was at the office, and he like took a look and he's like, oh yeah, we can fix it here and here, and then like fixed it, and now I haven't been able to break it again. So I mean, I think it's a good thing. Pretty simple process, really. Like I'm not like doing any drawings or anything like that. It's basically like, I like this, I don't like this, and he'll sometimes say that's a stupid comment, and other times be like, no, you got something there.
Yeah, so Tyler, we've got the old man of professional climbing. Sorry about that. Star's been around and in the game for a really, really long time. Yours relatively new, to the scene, and to, moving from just being a climber guy to having this role. What's it like to have like influence on the gear that you use versus like the rest of us, where we're just, in the store looking at what we kind of want? What's that role been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to like be involved to that, like in that process. I mean, I've used this, like I'm a pretty young climber, but I've still climbed most of my life. So I've seen like a lot of different gear come and go. And I mean, there's still like some new technology going into climbing gear. Like we haven't like reached the pinnacle of what's going to happen. And I mean, it's pretty interesting to like see that process like evolve still. I mean, I remember like climbing in a harness when I was a kid that had maybe like 7 or 8 gear loops. And now you're like, okay, wait, we can have a harness that has 2 gear loops. Like you don't need 4 gear loops to get, your sport rack on.
Do you want to speak to that for a second,
Yeah,
Chris?
I've been wanting to ask about this, and Mike left the stage beforehand, but I was wondering if that was the impetus of just like feeling sorry and bad for the people who are trying to red point with all their trad climbing Goomba on the back of their harness. Like, look, I had an evolution. I've been in climbing forever, and I was definitely like give me whatever gear, and it's, I don't care. It's, you suffer. It's fine. It's heavy. I don't care. It's fine. It's what you climb in. It just, if you can't climb in it, then you should be doing something else. But I've evolved into like a very particular sport climber because, as my abilities dwindle, I need every little help that I can get. And it just kills me. Like, come on. You're trying your hardest thing ever. That's awesome. You should maybe take the gree and the things off the back of your harness. I know you might forget them next time you go, but you probably will remember to put them back on when you go to the Black Canyon or wherever it is you go. So I just figured that you guys were just like, because I've wanted a pair of scissors just to cut those loops off of there and like, all right, now go. Try your hardest climb ever without the extra like 2 pounds of stuff on the back of your harness.
Hat on the back.
So was that in your thought process?
Mm-hmm.
Just cutting those off so no one can take all this stuff with them? Don't take all the stuff with you guys when you're sport climbing.
You don't need the gree. You don't need the, well, I mean, there's probably
There's
some
no
things that
rescue
you need,
scenario on a sport climb where you're going to need 2 cordelettes and a
Bring a single
T-block.
quick draw though. Like,
yeah.
for your
bring a
belayer.
single quick draw
Your dog draw on your brush, dog.
to relieve your belayer if
Yeah,
you're in
dog
direct
draw.
for a long time.
That's
Pro
it.
tip.
That's what I was saying. Maybe
And
you
bring
could
your brush.
get it down to 1.
One
One little one.
Yeah. You guys are talking about
Just a
2 now.
little loop.
Get rid of that 1.
Do you remember back in the day when people would, I remember like I still have Metolius sling, people would like carry trad gear on like over a shoulder sling instead of putting stuff on your harness.
Man, I only recently stopped doing that about 4
You
years
have any
ago.
salty comments on that somehow?
I fight tooth and nail
course
with
he does.
Steph Davis about that still. 'Cause
What, Steph is big into the sling?
She still runs a sling.
Wow.
Yeah. I finally almost fell to my death in the black because of the weight on my shoulders. It puts it when you put it on your harness, it's on your legs. If it's steep climbing and you have a big rack on, nobody knows what I'm talking about, but it sucks. So anyway, I've evolved in that sense. I'm actually I'm proudly open to evolution.
Are you?
Yeah, because I could be a real stick in the mud, dude. I've been climbing 36 years.
Yeah.
Like, I could be one of those guys that's like, yeah, this is how we did it, and this is how we're doing it. But I feel like I even turned my gates.
Gates out now?
I was gates in for, honestly, I guess it would have been 33 years I was gates in. And I thought about it, and I messed with it, and then my shoulders started to hurt, so doing this is harder and harder. And I was like, I'm going gates out.
Is anyone gates in? Anyone gates in?
Boo. My boy with the old school Enormocast hat on. Sorry to disappoint you. I've converted. I mean, doing that when you're 50 and you've been climbing 34 years.
Do you need a harness?
He does need a harness.
Are you saying gates?
He needs a harness.
All right.
Are you saying gates in is a young man's game?
We were just talking about someone who.
What about you, Tyler? Come on, you're the new guard coming in. Where are the gates
Thanks
go?
for interrupting me.
Gates go out.
You're about to dig yourself into a hole.
Yeah,
out of control. What do you say?
Yeah, wait, we're only giving you a harness if you go gates out for the rest of your days. Gates in on the front and in on the back? Out on the back?
You're doing both?
You have a Desert Rock Sports shirt on too. You're awesome.
This guy's psycho, though.
Yeah, he's Vegas cat.
He lives in my
guides for those
neighborhood.
guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Tyler, your gates out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Is that what we're gonna do? For
Yeah,
the rest
no,
of the
we're not
show?
going to do that. Although I think that could be like an entire podcast, but we don't have a whole lot of time. I'd like to ask you guys about just like cutting edge sport climbing now. We've talked about cutting edge sport climbing gear. Let's talk about cutting edge sport climbing. And there's been, you guys are just continue to put up like insanely hard routes, and we're seeing both men and women just continuing to push the limit higher and higher, both on boulders and routes, specifically in sport climbing. Where do you guys see things going over the next 5 years, 10 years? Can it continue to get harder?
I mean, definitely. And I think it will continue to get harder with just the sheer number of people that are now climbing. I think like on a global standard, like the level's like as high as it's ever been. I mean, Laura just did the fastest 15C ever, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 6 sessions, I think.
Yeah, 6 sessions. And that's like men and women, like that's pretty unreal. So I think we'll see like 15D by a woman in the next like 5 to 10 years for sure. I think we'll see repeats of like the 15Ds. And I mean, yeah, we're going to see like 516 at some point. Like that's not out of the realm of possibility. Definitely. What do you think?
I think we're a ways from 516 personally, but I know that's not a sexy answer, but yeah, I often think about soccer and how easy it is to play soccer and how many people in the world play soccer. And so the very best talent in soccer, like those are likely actually some of the best soccer players in the world, you know?
Right.
But for a really long time, climbing was such a small pursuit and expensive and limiting, even by the sense, like you can play soccer if you live in Virginia or in like Ontario or in Mexico or whatever, but like people who live in Saskatchewan or Kansas, they probably weren't even exposed to climbing. Like 10 or 15 years ago, they probably, actually not probably, I can say from experience, like don't know what climbing is. That's even a pursuit that people would be interested in.
Yeah.
And so I think that now, like, I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but like 10 years ago when I was sitting on a plane and somebody was like, oh, what do you do for fun? Or like, what do you do? Like, and I'd be like, oh, I'm a climber. And they're like, oh, have you done Mount Everest?
Mount Everest.
And I love Sam Elias, because when I talk to Sam Elias, he's like, he can be like, yeah. And they're like, no, fucking what? But no, now when I'm on an airplane and I'm sitting next to somebody and I'm like,
free solo El Cap.
and no, they're like, oh, do you boulder? Cool. How hard do you boulder? And I'm like, damn, you guys know what you're talking about now. This is crazy.
Yet?
Yeah, exactly. You do the boards? You moonboard guy or what? I'm like, damn, you don't even climb? You know what moonboard is? But no, I just think that level of exposure.
So like the next greatest climber is out there. They just haven't been exposed to it, or they're starting to get exposed to it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what Tyler was alluding to is that there's just so many more people, which means, if you had 10,000 climbers before and 1% of them were like elite, now you have 10 million climbers, and that 1% that's elite, that's just a much bigger pool of people. That being said, though, this is why I admire Tyler so much, is like, I still think that in North America, there's a really small number, especially compared to Europe. It's always been this way. But in North America, there's a really small number of people who like are really dedicated to the craft of like very, very high level sport climbing. And I hope to see that number of people go up, like for North America in particular. In Europe, they're like crushing us. They're so good.
I think the American standard is pretty different than the global standard.
way
I guess
different.
I was speaking on a global perspective, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I think in America, just like the number, you know, we have like routes, especially like in the red. I think there's potential for really hard routes, but like generally, I think you're gonna have to go really far out there. Like you're gonna need to be pretty psyched to go find the next level, but it's gonna like happen for sure. I mean, I was thinking like Adam Ondra, he's like unquestionably done the most for our like hard performance climbing,
Right.
And he's done it in every discipline. And I think that like you're gonna see like more specialized people excelling more and more in one discipline. And yeah, I mean even now like he's not even close to winning World Cups anymore. Like he's finaling, but then there's like these kids that are just like so crazy good.
Right.
Probably the next round, because like bouldering's having a huge moment right now, and the standards are so insane. It's insanely high. But I do feel like the next round of like enormous leaps of progress that we'll see in the realm of sport climbing will be from Olympic hopefuls that either don't qualify or that just burn out and decide that they like. I mean, a lot of competition climbers actually don't like being outside all the time, and the end of their competition career is kind of the end. But there's a lot of them too that, you know, have this tremendous volume of training and adaptation already.
Sean Bailey,
Yeah.
you know, kind of burned out on the
Yeah, but he burned out a
competition
while
side.
ago.
It
Like
was a while
I
ago.
would honestly
Or
say
Hamish,
that like
on the
I'm talking
bouldering
about
side.
like people who are like, you know, have spent 20 years in the competition scene, and then they turn 32 or 33 or whatever, and they're like ready to like change over to being outdoors.
It's cracked up at the 32 comment.
Well, it'll be awesome to see sport climbing have its moment, like like you were alluding to, like bouldering is really having that like breakthrough moment for sport climbing to experience. That'll be awesome to see. And you guys, I mean, you know, two of the hardest American sport climbers are sitting on this couch right now. So you guys are on the forefront of it. You see it. And will there continue to be like really hard sport climbs developed, do you think, in America? Is that where there's a lot of potential, or is international still the place?
I mean, there's definitely more rock in Europe than in America, I think, to be developed. But I think, like, you know, there's going to be development in both areas. Like I was saying, I just think in the States, you know, at least around Vegas where we both live, like, you're just going to have to be a pretty motivated individual who's going to drive and hike very far out there to find, like, the next cliff.
Just get out there like J-Star with that drill and just start putting up stuff that nobody else will ever get on, probably. How many FAs do you have that have never seen a second?
You think?
Oh, I don't know, 50?
Really?
Yeah, probably.
They're too hard, dog.
Or they're obscure, or you know. But yeah, I think to answer your question, like I think the wealth of right now, there's more people climbing at a high level than there are developing routes at a high level internationally, but certainly in the States, I would say. So I think that like getting guys like this to start bolting, and he wants to, you know, he's stoked. But as far as like new terrain goes, I absolutely there's so much more new terrain. Like I'm confident of it. I bought a drone like 8 months ago and just flew it around on my rest days and found like 5 new crags.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that's just like near where our house is, you
Speaking
know?
of like progression of gear for
gotta
climbing.
get-
Yeah,
gotta get to work.
exactly.
Yes. By the way, we're in Canada, just so you guys remember.
Yeah.
North America.
That's
North
okay.
America.
The audience is global. We should wrap it up.
Yeah, we have to wrap it up. We're
Should
at
we give
time.
away some? Should we let
Yeah.
J-Star and Tyler give away a harness before we wrap it up?
Yeah, we could do that. You want to do a quick question or two?
Oh yeah, let's
I think
open it
we're
up
all
for
right.
some questions.
Yeah, I would.
Anybody?
Yeah, we should do that.
Questions for Jonathan or Tyler?
There was a
Come
question
forward.
in the back, or did you just
Come
want a harness?
It's okay. The answer can be yes to both.
Okay,
has-
yes to both. Do you have a question?
Do you want me to run out?
Or you just want a
she
harness?
said she had a question though.
She wants a harness and a question.
Okay, so I've only gone climbing twice, but my boyfriend and my best friend's fiance are avid climbers here, and they absolutely love it. So what would you recommend as like an advice for me who's only climbed 3 times?
Oh, wow. But you have the benefit of
Experience.
your partner
Yes.
is like way psyched.
Yes.
Man, like what an amazing opportunity it is to have like that connection to your partner and their friends that are like psyched to get out. In the beginning, I mean, I think for years, just go climbing as often as you can and change like the styles you're going on, you know, don't always go back to the same place, but try and like experience different styles. And if you have access to a climbing gym, like that, like this amount of volume of climbing you can do like after work or whatever it is, just can go way up. But I think for the first several years, I think the best advice I would give is just like every opportunity you have, just go climbing. Even if it's short stuff, long stuff, bouldering, sport climbing, like whatever.
The other thing is if once you get into it and you'll be sort of leveraging the relationship with these people who are more experienced. But at some point, I mean, it's totally legit and really good to go on a, if not a guided climbing trip, take a course from a guide.
Yeah.
Because when I guided, like I used to have, and this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but like I would have, you know, the partners of very good climbers come to me because learning from someone like that is very, very difficult. Or if they're like way better than you and they just kind of like, oh, it's my day where I have to take this person to do something that's way easy for me, that's not a good vibe. And you won't get that vibe from a guide, you know, that's what they're there for. And again, not necessarily guided climbing, but like a course, like, okay, we're doing a thing. I think it's really valuable, it's worth the money, and you employ a dirtbaggy climber guy that's or a girl that's you know, a guide. So
what do you think might be an important piece of gear that she might want to have if she's going to get out and start to try to climb?
No.
A Lithos SL harness. Go get yourself that harness. Go get yourself that harness.
Oh my God. Pick one more person because I don't want to be the arbiter of the harnesses. Pick someone.
Do I have to go out there
pick somebody
too?
to ask a question.
In the middle here.
My question is, I'm pretty short, so you were saying that you bolted something super hard, the last 50 of them that hasn't known a lot of people climbed. When you're bolting, do you think about bolting it for a short person, tall person? How do you like design it? I've been climbing for 35 years and it's really hard for me to tall climb, but I really go for it. So as a person that designs them, do you think about those things for short or tall person?
As a fellow short person?
Yeah, I'm a shorty too. Let me say this. I think this is the best answer. I'm always open to changing. So I'll bolt routes, and then after I climb on them and after I share the experience with other people, if I notice that something is off or needs to move or needs to come down or whatever, I used to be more apprehensive about moving bolts, but now I'm like super into it. So I'm like moving bolts whenever they need to be moved. So, but most of the time I'm looking for like the best places to be safe and to clip comfortably from a good hold, you know? And I'm thinking about clipping for sure. On a much harder route, I might think about clipping when a draw is already there, because I imagine that the majority of time spent on that route will be with draws hanging. But if I'm bolting an easier route, like for warming up, or that will have many more people will have access to, then I'm thinking about making the bolts just as easy as possible. I used to be more about like, oh, it needs to be run out and all this, and then I got so many complaints that I just caved and just putting bolts everywhere now.
Now, if she's going to be pushing really hard and reaching for bolts and not quite getting them and taking whips, is there something that might make her feel better to take a whip after whip after whip to make her feel safe?
Safe and comfortable?
Safe and comfortable.
Would there be something like
maybe something that you put on that...
Put it on your body?
Has
like a t-shirt?
Like a like a Lithos SL harness. Go get your harness over there. Thank you for that great question. What do you think, Chris? Should we wrap it up?
We got to wrap it up.
No.
Let's give it up for Crushers, Tyler Thompson and Jonathan Siegrist. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, y'all, that wraps things up from the main stage there in the beautiful Arc'teryx Academy Climb Pavilion in Squamish, British Columbia. Holy smokes, what a weekend it was. It was so good. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Let me tell you more about how I got after things there in Squamish. You know, it's funny. Before I went, I connected with Nate Drolet, who I'm working with as a coach right now. And I was like, I got 4 days. And he goes, ooh, that's the tough one. Because with 4 days, you know, you don't really want to take a day off because what do? Then you miss 25% of your days. But you also don't really want to go 4 days on because then you're just wrecking yourself. So anyway, I just decided to go 4 days on, but not go to the death on any one day, except maybe the multi-pitch day. And that was unintentional. I just kind of epicked out on this multi-pitch with Calouse. So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about it. I'll just go chronological order. And then I'm going to do a plog episode next week where I'll really break down my goals, my training, and my outdoor days, and then kind of what I've got my sights set on for my September training and performance goals. So I'll do like a real deep dive on the plog in a week, but I'll just do a kind of a mini recap of my Squamish trip because we're talking about Squamish, and this episode came to you from Squamish. So day one, I did a bouldering day. My buddy Johan came up from Oregon. He came up last year as well to help me out, but also to climb. And so on day one, we climbed out in, I think it's called the farm area of the boulders. It's like underneath the apron part of the Chief. It's so stunning. If you haven't been out there, let me just set the stage. It's magical. Like the forest where these boulders are is just full of magic and wisdom. Everything's old. These rocks are old and wise and covered in moss and lichen, and the trees are old and wise and covered in moss and lichen and create this beautiful canopy, and you just feel enveloped in this special area. It feels very kind of Middle Earth. We totally epic. We got lost. We used the GPS coordinates from Mountain Project, which are garbage. And so then we downloaded Kaya Pro, which I used to have, and then I wasn't bouldering as much anymore, and so I re-downloaded it, and it just took us exactly where we needed to go, which was nice. Shout out Kaya. And got to our boulders, and then just did some really fun bouldering. I posted some videos and things, and we did this amazing V1 called Detached Flake. It's kind of a tall boulder, but it's all there. It's all very positive, and it's cool. I climbed it a few different ways. You can kind of do some hand jams. You can lay it back. You can climb it straight on. It was very, very cool. Like the feet weren't good, but the hands were good, and just kind of got my head right for that granite climbing in Squamish. It's all about the feet in Squamish. I guess it's all about the feet everywhere. My notes in Intentional Climber, like when I close out a session, whether I'm indoors or outdoors, my notes are like, you can do these recaps after every month and it'll just kind of analyze what your journal entries themes were. And my themes are constantly, it's all about the feet. Focus on the feet, pressure through the feet, use the hips, generate momentum from the hips. You know, it's just me just like constantly trying to remind myself that climbing is with the feet. And that is really brought into stark relief in Squamish on those granite boulders. It is all about the feet. And then in particular, to really accentuate that, I shot a YouTube video with Anna Hazelnut, which I think will be out by the time this podcast episode comes out. She's going to turn it around really quickly. If it is, I'll link to it or I'll post it on Instagram. And it was a slab climbing episode. I did Slab 101 with Anna about a year and a half ago or something like that. It was a really popular video of hers. It's got 100 and some thousand views. And we did that in a gym. And this was like basically Slab 201, where we met up on a slab. It was a quote unquote only V1, but you can't. Slab grades, slab should have its own grading system. You shouldn't be able to give a V grade to a slab. It should be like fruit or something. And this one was banana, and then the other hard one was cantaloupe. I recommend a new grading system for slabs, and it's all fruit based. Okay, well that's my grade tangent there. But anyway, that really helped me to focus on my feet. I didn't want to do it at all, but you know, it's Anna. I'm not going to say no to doing a slab video. And Chris did it with me, and it was really fun and funny. The concept of it was great. She also got Kai Leitner and Ashima and Amity to come out and do different slabs with her. It's just amazing. So that helped me to focus on my feet. And then I think my bouldering got better after that. I put some efforts on a V5 over there called Space Monkey and made really good progress on it. There's some technical heel hooks that I was very proud to have been able to have stuck and then made moves off of. And I think if I had wanted to really, like, if that was the project of the trip, if I had gone back there for a second day, I think I probably had a better chance than not of putting it together. But I didn't go back because my goal for Squamish was to just have fun. A day of bouldering, a day of multi-pitch, a day of route climbing, and then kind of a flex day. And so that day in the boulders, I think the hardest thing I climbed was like a V2/3, climbed a bunch of V1s, put some efforts on a V4 and a V5, and just had a really good time and didn't overdo it. And that I was very happy with. Day 2 was a multi-pitch day that I went out with Chris Kalous. We did a route on the apron called Long Time No See, which is 9 pitches. It's like 825 feet of climbing. And it was like just humble pie, as trad climbing is for me. Lots of trying to relearn my early days of trad climbing, slab and hand jams, cracks, finger locks, ring locks. I had a little bit of everything. And I'm proud of myself. I led a few pitches, which was really fun and is just like the head game of placing gear and figuring out what sections to run out a little bit in case you need certain bigger gear for like later in the climb, and slinging things so the rope runs smoothly, and all this stuff that I used to do when I was back in California that I just, skills that have atrophied for me since moving out here to Kentucky. And it was fun to dust those off. Chris led the hard pitches. There were some 5-9, I think there was like 3 or 4 5-9 pitches. And then I did 3 or 4 5-7 pitches, and we just kind of swung leads on some of the easier stuff. But it was heady enough and full value enough where there were some sections that I was gripped and trying very hard. And in fact, I got my leg stuck for a couple of minutes, and it was terrifying. It was like a kind of an off-width crack where I was stacking hands, and then I was jamming my knee in there just to try and get a rest, and then I couldn't get my knee out, and then I couldn't get my foot out. It was funny. It was more funny than scary, but there's like a couple moments where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for this to be over. And then it was. And then we got to the top, and the views were nuts. And then we had like 6 rappels off, which are always terrifying. I enjoy rappelling, but I also am so scared of it. Every time I have to weight the rope and start over an edge, and you look down and it's like 100 feet straight drop, that's just never gotten easier. But then once I get going and I can add like a little bit of a rhythm and some speed to the rappel, I enjoy it. But I kissed the ground when we got done. It was a big day. We had a big day, and we got done like around lunchtime because we had to go do this live podcast, in fact. Oh, no. Actually, after the multi-pitch, we did do a live podcast, but it was with Paul McSorley and Vicky Weldon of the Arc'teryx team, and they live in Squamish. They're Squamish locals, and it was such a cool conversation that I'm going to release it as a bonus conversation for Patreons. And even if you're just a free member of the Patreon community, you'll get access to that. Chris is going to release it on his Enormocast, so you can catch it there as well. And that's why I'm not releasing it with this one, where we each took one of these episodes. So Chris is going to release the one with Paul and Vicky, but I will also release it just full, raw, uncut on Patreon. So you can check that one out. And it is such a wonderful conversation predominantly about Squamish climbing and just how it's evolved and the ethic of developing routes and climbing hard. And Vicky's like a super hard charging sport climber, and Paul has just always had the stoke for developing and doing really cool multi-pitches, and just a fascinating conversation. They've been climbing partners for decades now. So after we climbed this route, we went down and hosted a podcast, and I was looking at my Koros. I've been using my Koros a lot to train lately as I'm getting ready for this hard sports season that I want to do of endurance climbing, and also to prepare for Horseshoe Hell. And I was looking at my Koros, and I burned like 2,000 calories, and we did 830 feet of vertical over 9 pitches, and I just logged all of those. It's got really good tech to log multi-pitches, and it can tell your elevation, how many feet you've been climbing, and all of that stuff. And so I was recapping on that, and it was like just such an epic. Like my max heart rate was 153. It was probably when I got my leg stuck. Really spiked when I was trying hard on that pitch, but also just, a big day, and you can check the GPS and it shows all the pitches and the approach and the descent, and very fun to review that all before lunch craziness, crazy day. And again, I'll talk more about this on the blog in detail. I just wanted to do a little recap. Day 3 was a sport climbing day with Johan. We went out to Petrifying Wall, and this was by the recommendation of Connor. So Anna and Connor are a couple, if you know Anna and Connor. Connor is also a coach for Project Direct Coaching, which is Carly Rager's coaching company, and Connor's amazing. Connor Runge, I never know if I'm pronouncing it right. Runge or Runge? Runge. He's like the coolest dude. He is a crazy strong climber, y'all. Just a wildly talented climber, and also as a coach. But anyway, he recommended Pet Wall for Johan and I, and we started at a different wall, got a warm up on a really cool 10A called Zoe, and then we went over to Pet Wall, and I nearly on-sighted one of the greatest 11As I've ever been on. It's called Pleasant Pheasant, and nearly on-sighted that, but my body was pretty wrecked from the multi-pitch day, no surprise. Weird things hurt, like my triceps, I think from like mantling and trying to push myself out of getting my legs stuck. And my legs are really tired from crack climbing and just like epicking all day on styles that I'm not as accustomed to as climbing here at the Red River Gorge. And so I was very tired, so I didn't quite get the onside of that. Nor did I get the Zen the second go. I came off at the same place, which is just like a couple moves from the chains. It's a really long route. It's like 90 feet maybe, but just the best. It didn't matter send or no send. I was just out there to have fun and move on rock. And the movement of that route was wicked cool. Johan moved also, he easily flashed it and then moved over to the 11C, which he nearly flashed as well, which is right next to it. And he said that might have been an even better route, which is hard to believe, but also maybe not hard to believe because that wall, the entire wall looked amazing. So I can't wait to get back there with a little bit more energy. And that was a really fun day. Again, had to scramble from there to go host the podcast that you just listened to with the crew. And then Chris and I hosted an event that night it was a filmmakers contest called Squamish Exposed, where they invited 6 incredibly creative and talented photographers and videographers to create a 5-minute short film. And all they had was 5 days to do it. And it was wild what these people came up with. Arc'teryx is going to post the films on their website in September, so just keep an eye out for them. I'll post something about it. But the films blew my mind on how creative they were, how different they were, and just how epic the storytelling and the shots were. So that was such a fun night. Then this wicked thunderstorm rolled in and kind of shut everything down. The power went out for a while, but then it came back on, and people like raved all night long. I went to bed. I was so tired. But that was a great night. And then the last climbing day we had was we went back to the boulders, but just very, very casually, at least me. It was myself, Kalous, and Johan went to the Grand Wall boulders and just like messed around on some really cool V0s and V1s, and then projected a V4 for a little while. Johan sent it last go, like light fading right before we went to dinner, which was a great way to cap off the trip. And I just played around. One of my big takeaways, I guess, and we'll, again, get more into this in the blog, because there's a lot more that I did that I just don't have time to cover right now. But one of the big takeaways was just that you can just go out and have fun and climb like easier stuff, quote unquote easier stuff. I was still trying really hard on a lot of the easier stuff. And it was as fulfilling for me on this trip as it would have been if I had climbed some, V5 or V6. I think they're just different trips. Sometimes you have a performance focused trip, and sometimes you have a sample all of the local flavors trip. And this was the latter, and I'm very, very glad that it was, because it was so fun to just get out there without having like any significant expectation and kind of relieve that pressure and just move on rock and walk around and just try things and not even know what the grade was. Just be like, oh God, that looks cool. Let's just hop on that. And like Kalous and I got on this it was like a V2 highball, but the top was wet. And so we just created kind of an eliminate circuit on the bottom part and just created like a V1 and a V, maybe 1 plus or a V2, just by eliminating different holds and messing around on it. And that was so fun. So yeah, anyway, great fun time at the trip. I want to shout out the entire team that made the Arc'teryx Academy happen. I cannot imagine the amount of work and expense that goes into putting on this event for the community. It is astounding to me how well it all comes together, and all of the moving pieces, and just this team. You all are incredible. There's a huge amount of volunteers. Shout out to the volunteers, all the athletes who come in from all over the world to put on these clinics. And it's really a learning academy. They do this so that people can learn new skills at these clinics. And then just the entertainment side of it was really fun. And so personal shout out to the team that Chris and I worked with very closely. That's Jaden, Lucy May, Josh, Bradley, and Christian. Y'all crushed it. Thank you for making it so wonderful and enjoyable to take part in this incredible event. I highly recommend the Arc'teryx Academy if you can get to it next year. I hope to be back, and I would love to see you there. Shout out to you for listening and for supporting me so that I can go and have these fun, crazy adventures. I want to give a thank you again to the panel of this episode that you just listened to, Mike, J-Star, Alannah, and Tyler. And I will be back next week with a plug to do a deep dive, not just on what I learned in Squamish and the specific projects that I was working on and all of that, but also what I've been doing with my training to get ready for the fall season. I also got out to the Red River Gorge a couple days this month, which is rare for August, but huge learnings there. I got on some potential fall projects and also am just trying to get my fitness back. And so how am I training for that? I'll dive into all of that in the plug. I want to thank you all for your support. Shout out to Intentional Climber for keeping me on track and keeping my goals front and center on this recent trip to Squamish and this entire month. We'll break all of those down in detail on next month's plug, and I will see you then.